Well, it's just sad to talk about.
The streets of Rabbit Hash are a little more somber today as news of the mayor's passing reaches its citizens.
796.
Inside the general store, Chris Carter says things just won't be the same.
Oh, yeah, he was loved by everybody. He really was.
Oh, it was just devastating. Absolutely, yeah. But actually, we missed the eulogy.
We is gathered here today to pay homage to our recently departed mayor. Once he considered running for Boone County Sheriff. When he was advised that he should change from a Democrat to a Republican if he expected to win, he said he would die first. And he did.
He had just exhausted himself and he couldn't move. He just had to lay there. So we picked him up, put him in a car and brought him home.
He had really bad arthritis, and I mean, he could barely walk anymore. He was really, and he couldn't hear, you know, he was just beyond what he should be, so.
I heard he was a good mayor, you know.
Well, he was. He laid around here for a couple of years, I think, before he croaked.
Final line is he had to be euthanized. The mayor had to be put down.
You see, the mayor of Rabbit Hash was a dog.
Rabbit hash and succotash and good old pinto beans. Well, you can get more down at the store under the old shade tree. Rabbit Hash, Kentucky is where I want to be. Cornbread and lasses and sassy fresh tea. They come across the river, they come from rising sun. Well, they come to Rabbit Hash so they can have some fun. Rabbit Hash, Kentucky is where I want to be. Cornbread, lasses, and sassy fresh tea. Rabbit Hash, Kentucky is where I want to be. Cornbread, lasses, and sassy fresh tea.
We'd driven aimlessly, wandering the winding twists and turns of the Kentucky back roads until we finally found what we were looking for. The tiny Kentucky town of Rabbit Hash. We'd gone there with our cameras to find out if one particular story, a rather bizarre story we'd heard about, was true. Is truth really stranger than fiction? In the case of Rabbit Hash, I'd have to say yes. I'm being vague because, well, while we went there to see what kind of town would actually elect a dog as mayor, what we found was so much more. More than one person in Rabbit Hash referred to their town as the center of the universe. After spending a few weeks there, I'm halfway inclined to believe them.
We're right on the banks of the Ohio River in Boone County, Kentucky. We're probably at mile marker 506 on the Ohio River, so we're kind of right in the middle of the Ohio River.
It wasn't you that told me the population went up to 5 because somebody just had a baby?
Oh yeah, a baby. That's right. Sarah Grace is 5.
Where's all this attention? Oh, look, we got white trash baby.
How did it get the name, Rabbit Hash?
It all comes down to, it was a flood. It was the 1847 flood. It was kind of near Thanksgiving and Christmas. And people were standing around kind of bemoaning their, everything's wiped out, their houses are floating down, livestock's gone. And they're going, oh, we're not going to have Christmas turkey, what are we going to do? And, well, there's always a town drunk in Rabbit Hash. Remember that. That's important. There was a town drunk in 1847. His name was Frank. I said, well, Frank, what are you going to do for Christmas? And he looked around, and, as the floodwaters came up, it drove all the rabbits upland. And he looked around and he goes, well, I guess there'll be plenty of Rabbit Hash.
So it's because a bunch of rabbits ran up the hill. If a bunch of horses had run up the hill, would it be called horse hash?
Yeah. Or
dog hash,
or carp hash. I'm glad it wasn't fish. I don't like fish, so I'm glad it was rabbits. Rabbits are nice, furry little animals, and they're friendly, and they're not intimidating.
Who's the town drunk today?
I'm not sure. We'll have to decide and vote on it here later.
It's not you.
No.
Okay.
No.
I just want to make sure because that could be fun. That'd be a fun interview.
We could practice.
I've had fried rabbit. We've never had rabbit hash.
No, and I don't plan to. I've had rabbit, and I've had squirrel's head with green noodles, but I have not had rabbit hash.
Squirrel's head with green noodles.
Yes, squirrel cheeks are a delicacy, not mine.
Never have. We got a lot of rabbits this year, though, back there in the pen. We had some last year, but we smoked them.
Smoked them like cigarettes?
No, in a smoker.
I don't know if anyone around here has ever had rabbit hash.
Have you ever eaten rabbit hash?
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
You have to be drunk when you eat it.
Well, I have, I'll tell you, back during Depression, that's about all we had. You know, I was so poor that, you know, we didn't have any money or anything, we couldn't even pay attention. And I woke Dad up one morning about 2 o'clock, and I said, Dad, there's somebody in the kitchen prowling around. You want me to get the shotgun? He said, no, Tom, just leave him alone. If he finds anything to eat, said, we'll get up and take it away from him. And I said, even now, you know, I'm on Social Security, I'm on a fixed income. And about the middle of the month, buddy, I'm fixed, I'm in a fix. You know, that money runs out. Even now, when I go to Colonel Sanders, I've got to lick somebody else's fingers.
Rabbit hash? What the hell's in that anyway?
But Rabbit Hash isn't the only Kentucky town with a colorful name. In fact, the names of a number of neighboring towns reads more like a raunchy biology lesson than a county guide.
Well, Lick is a very common name here, and people have fun with it, obviously. We have Big Bone Lick, Beaver Lick, Sugar Tit. It's one of the towns around here, the community of Sugar Tit. We just got the internet down here, believe it or not. Cable. So I'm getting on this computer. I don't know, I paid $3,000 for this machine. I had to have a kid teach me. So I said, let's look up Big Bone Lick. So she types in Big Bone Lick. And this screen comes up and Caitlin goes, Dad, that's porno. There were like 7,000 sites you could go to under Big Bone Lick. So I thought, maybe I'll just stick with the library.
But out of all of them, Beaver Lick, Big Bone, Sugar Tit. All right, hold on, I just like saying those. Let me do it again. Beaver Lick, Big Bone, Sugar Tit, and Rabbit Hash. Out of all of them, the 3.5-acre town, you heard me right, 3.5 acres, known as Rabbit Hash, is the one that most people remember. Now, there's a lot of things that make the town memorable, but more than likely it's Rabbit Hash's tumultuous and unconventional political history that has recently had the most tongues wagging.
Any place that would elect a dog as mayor is a place to call home.
Among the most prominent politicians of our state, Goofy stood snoot and paws above the rest, for he alone could claim without reservation to be the only certified son of a bitch of them all.
That's the dumbest thing I ever saw in my life.
In the summer of 1998, Rabbit Hash, Kentucky had an official in-town population of only 4, but their decision to hold an election unlike any other before it drew voters from nearby districts all over Boone County.
In 1998, Boone County was celebrating their bicentennial. It was a month-long celebration, and they asked each little town to have something special for a weekend. So the lady that ran the general store called me and said, think of something. And so I came up with a laundry list, that's the one I liked the best, and said, we'll have a campaign to buy your way into office to become honorary mayor of Rabbit Hash. So it was like a real political campaign. The one with the most money wins.
To make fun of Kentucky politics, I guess, we decided that the way you vote is $1 a vote. If you wanted to be mayor and you had $500, and you got 500 votes.
Coming from a native Kentucky family, and actually from Somerset, Kentucky, where they murder the sheriff about every 5 years, I thought it really did mirror Kentucky politics a great deal.
It just took on a life of its own. They talked about it on talk radio. it just became this bigger-than-life campaign, and it made people laugh, and it made them vote.
There were candidates from everywhere. There were humans, and then the dogs decided they were going to run.
Because of the unique makeup of this community, running the dog for mayor was probably the most logical thing we could do.
The politics of Rabbit Hash is very informal, though. You know, we don't have a post office.
It was the most honest election ever held in the Commonwealth, because money talks, put your money down, get your votes, and everything was fine.
If an election were held this way, then instead of spending all this money on redundant promotion, the money at the end of the election would then be used for, say, charitable or a meaningful project.
Which was exactly what the voters of Rabbit Hash planned to do with the money once the election was over.
There's a little church up the road here, the East Bend Methodist Church. There's a cemetery there. Cemetery board maintains the cemetery, but Rabbit Hash Historical Society wanted to see that the church got taken care of.
But before they could put any of those election dollars to good use, they first had to find candidates suitable to run a town like Rabbit Hash.
Well, at first there were just humans in the mayor's race.
Brandon Scott, that's a human being. His motto was, vote for Brandon, he won't pee on your tires.
One day Barbara was at Jane Cochran's house and they had an old black lab. His name's Herb. In Rabbit Hash, everybody's name's Herb. Hey Herb, how you doing? I'm all right, Herb. You know, that's just the name you use. Well, this dog was named Herb. He was getting kind of old. They're sitting in the flower garden. The two ladies are working, and Barbara goes, Miss Jane, I think Herb would be an excellent candidate for mayor.
Herb just was the best one. His motto was the perfect politician. He doesn't talk. The human being thing was getting a little old.
Well, as an animal activist, I must say that it's really long past due. Dogs are man's best friend, and they have the loyalty.
They're not driven by lobbyists.
No.
I mean, unless maybe the Purina guy comes down or something. But
I think they're driven by snacks.
Miss Jane just goes, well, I think that'd be fine. You know, that's fine. So here we got Herb for mayor, son.
He did come with a family that could help him in office because he has his, common law wife and kids that live up here. That's real common in Kentucky politics too.
We had heard that Herb was entered into the election. Then there was talk about Miss Piggy, who was a pot-bellied pig in Rabbit Hash. And it's really got a little silly, right? As far as we were concerned. And so Beverly and I were sat out on the deck one night and we said, well, if they're going to run pigs and dogs in this election, the only one that really should win this election would be Goofy.
Actually, before he ran, way before he ran, he was always described as if he could not eat it or f it, he would piss on it. And that really was his philosophy of life. And it's not bad, it's very basic.
by all accounts, Goofy practiced what he preached. It's said that the animal population of Rabbit Hash is littered with nearly 200 of his offspring.
Goofy was very popular.
He likes sheep.
He's a great dog, you know, it's a great dog.
Do you think it was
Mayor material?
Yeah, do you think he was good mayor material?
Well, I don't know, I think my dog's mayor material too.
Did you know Goofy?
Yes.
What'd you think of him?
He was sweet. He was a nice dog. He was a good dog.
Goofy was very cool. He was goofy. I mean, before he was mayor, he did his daily trips up and down the road, check things out, stop to people's houses. If there's dog food left in the bowl, he'd clean it out for you. And
Did you know Goofy?
Oh, yeah. Hit him twice.
You hit him twice?
Yeah. You don't. He walks the road, he owns the road. Look how big my truck is. I ain't getting over for no dog, especially the bear. I had somebody else running against him. So if I run over him, no competition then. But he won.
But a few futile attempts on his life couldn't sway this proud pup from venturing into the tumultuous political fray of the impending Rabbit Hash election of 1998.
so there became a political race, a heated political race right at that point, the two dogs. And of course, the humans were still interspersed trying to get votes here and there. You know, vote for me, here's a shot of whiskey, or I'll give you the $1 if you know. They couldn't touch the dogs.
With dogs in the heat of competition, a canine mayor of Rabbit Hash seemed inevitable, and certainly among the mutts, Goofy appeared to have the popular vote paws down. That is, until yet another opponent threw his hat into the political ring. Only one human stood a chance of beating Goofy, and once he joined the race, the election for the mayor of Rabbit Hash really got crazy.
You gotta like somebody that's insane as Clifford.
I've known Clifford since before he moved down here. He used to live in Cincinnati. They said he was a salesman for Gerber baby food, wore a suit, a necktie and everything. And then he had some sort of an awakening or something and quit his job. And well, about that time he had a bad motorcycle wreck. He went down on a motorcycle and a yellow cab ran over his head. And he hadn't been quite the same. Yeah.
Well, what you say, Clifford is childlike. He's very intelligent, very talented, and totally wiped out because of this injury.
He lives back there on the creek, and you'll see him. You'll see what we're talking about.
All right. Well, shall we? I think we should go meet Clifford.
All right.
Since Clifford has no phone, or at least phone number as far as anyone knew, we had no idea what to expect when we got to his estate. In fact, there'd been a fair amount of mystery surrounding our request to meet Clifford early on. According to many of the locals, getting to Crazy Clifford was about as easy as photographing Bigfoot, or getting an up-close look at that autopsied alien in Roswell. We'd even been warned that Clifford might be packing heat, and to approach with caution.
There was a fellow who lived there that they didn't get along. They shot at each other too.
Oh, Clifford! Yeah, I just went in and watched the news.
Clifford,
What you up to, Fletcher?
these fellers want to talk to you. They come all the way from California.
California. What part?
I live in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I've been there. She stopped today. She thought maybe you'd like to see some of these carvings.
Oh, sure, yeah, we'd absolutely love to.
So, no shots were fired, and we were soon invited into Clifford's house, a house that would make Ted Kaczynski feel right at home. Now, crazy ex-Gerber baby food salesman or not, Clifford's talent at wood carving was undeniable.
I usually go to the library and do research on them, and just draw them out and start whittling, start carving.
And they say you do everything with a screwdriver?
I had before, but I'm getting real prolific now. I'm using a chisel.
And have you been in Rabbit Hash long?
I've been here about 29 years now. Before I moved this piece of property here, I've been in every national park in the United States of America. I felt this is one of the overall human existence balance here. You never starve here. There's plants and weeds and trees. It's one of the most prolific areas in the landmass.
Of course, according to the legends that abound about Crazy Clifford, starving is not an issue.
If I'm cooking, it's good. If somebody else is cooking, well, it's a question mark there, you know?
What makes yours better? What makes yours good?
I usually put wildflowers and local greens in it, dandelions, and clover,
Wow.
maple pods.
But when you dig deeper into the legend that is Crazy Clifford, you soon come to realize that it's not just the good eating that keeps him in Rabbit Hash.
Tell me what you like about Rabbit Hash.
About Rabbit Hash?
Yeah.
It's the women, man. The Heine wine under the porch, is it? Peppermint patty, yes.
You just can't argue with that. Now, according to many, in an election cluttered with dogs and pot-bellied pigs, Clifford was perfect mayoral material for Rabbit Hash. And he was duly nominated. The only problem was, he didn't know it at the time.
Well, all of a sudden I heard Clifford Potter, man, and it caught me by such a surprise there, and they got me up there. And
Clifford got 1,200 votes.
like I told them on stage that I wasn't put up for it, but I accepted it.
All right, you got a donkey, you got a pig, you got a dog, you got Crazy Clifford. Who's going to win that election? Who's smarter?
I don't know. Pig is she's a little lady, takes good care of herself. She's clean. I don't know, that's going to be tough.
Financially backed by none other than the former owner and mayor of Rabbit Hash himself, Louis Scott, the man they call Crazy would prove to be a formidable adversary in the 1998 race for the mayor of Rabbit Hash. Why do you like Clifford as mayor?
Oh, he's crazy. He's just insane. You gotta like somebody that's insane as Clifford. Stand up on a picnic table and march the Marines song. Clifford's a hoot, man.
The Rabbit Hash election of 1998 was an election determined by the most number of votes bought. Candidates were bought and paid for, financed by their high-dollar interest groups as if it were pretty much any other election. Those votes were bought.
Oh, they're all bought. Every vote was bought. So you could buy as many as you want.
So knowing how much money was being paid in for each candidate would mean the difference between a mayor who walks erect and one that just laid around licking his own balls. But in this heated, fiercely competitive election, those campaign finance figures were an intensely guarded secret. Figuring out exactly how much money one opponent had in his campaign coffer over another would require an impeccably organized, stealthy implementation of savvy political strategy. Or maybe just a bottle of whiskey.
The night before, Louis Scott and what's the other man's name up the road there, the Goofy's daddy, they sat there for about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. And
Mr. Louis Scott, who sent the money down for Crazy Clifford, Mr. Scott came down over the hill with a quart of good Kentucky bourbon to find out how much money I had so he could kind of overcoat the money, right? Well, he wound up crawling on his hands and knees back to his cabin, and I knocked out his quart of bourbon, and we went on.
Still didn't know.
So there was a little Watergate thing going on.
Oh yeah, there was some Watergate going on, yeah.
He didn't make it to the election.
Yeah, he was trying to figure out how much money we had.
While booze may have played a part in the strategy along the campaign trail, a long-imposed state law made it clear that alcohol and elections were not to be mixed.
You cannot buy beer on election day. That's probably a state law. If can't be within 100 feet of the polling place, and our polling place is the general store. And it's quite a happening place on election day, depending on the elections. You walk into the cooler, there's a big sign, no beer sales. It's election day. When we had our election, there was plenty of whiskey and beer. And of course, you imbibe, and we're not afraid of whiskey around here. It didn't bother the candidates. It didn't change the outcome of the election. It didn't influence anybody. Maybe if you're a little less inhibited, you would vote more than the normal person would vote. So it worked out fine.
I voted for him twice.
You voted twice, that's good.
Yeah.
But even more than whiskey, bourbon, moonshine, payoffs, and beer, it would be the important socio-political platforms of the candidates that could determine the outcome of this election. While the other dogs never really voiced their campaign platforms, for anyone who knew Goofy, his was doggedly clear. Even before his campaign for mayor, it seems that Goofy had made traffic issues in downtown Rabbit Hash his #1 priority.
The really unique thing about Goofy is that from day one, Goofy would walk up and down the road. He walked down the center of the road. If a car came by, the car had to pull over in the ditch, and everybody knew him and knew that he wasn't going to move.
He was a canine speed bump, so we had no speeding.
Yeah, hit him twice.
If Goofy seemed to be running a campaign based on public safety, Clifford's campaign platform was largely based on public urination. What kind of platform would you run?
I think they ought to get rid of that outhouse up there sitting alongside the road with the urinal sitting out there. That's embarrassing. You know that? Trying to make national TV here, and you got an outhouse sitting right damn near the double yellow line there.
Well, there was one old outhouse left when Louis got to town. It was pretty full. So we had to we had to put another building out. We made a bigger outhouse. People eventually started coming here and drink beer. And, you drink beer so long, and then you break the seal. And once you break the seal, you have to go a lot. So we needed restroom facilities. So we had a two-holer. Well, the guys kind of got tired of waiting in line, so we tacked a funnel on the side on the river side of the outhouse, and it had a little hose, and it ran into the hole. So that was the pee funnel. Flood turned that building around, and the pee funnel's facing the road now. So if you use it, somebody's going to see you.
So you'd get rid of the outhouse. That'd be your major...
I wouldn't get rid of it. I'd just move it closer to the store.
Because you want an outhouse right next to the food and stuff.
Along with his outspoken problem with the public pisser, Crazy Clifford had other hard-hitting issues to tackle on his ticket. Among them, a lofty dream for making Rabbit Hash a better place to live.
I would say get more chickens and more hogs.
Oddly, as insightful and groundbreaking as Clifford's mayoral platform was, when voting day finally rolled around, it soon became all too clear that this was one election that was going to the dogs. As the election got underway, one by one, the mayoral hopefuls turned into candidate casualties. Seeing the writing on the wall, Louis Scott, who had bankrolled most of Clifford's bid for mayor, was among the first to concede the election.
He got beat out on brilliance. Never could outstink him any time.
It looks like we've had some concessions so far. Am I right, Tom? I have heard that
maybe plea bargain would be a better term.
That young Mr. Scott has conceded the election. Yeah! Who's for Goofy?
Oh, yeah!
Goofy was very popular, so Goofy did have a lot of the people in Rabbit Hash that voted for him. But also, he had a lot of people that we did business with, a lot of our friends that donated. I mean, we had a lot of $500 donations, $1,000 donations. So Goofy did well.
Goofy he took it and ran with it. There was no catching him.
This is about Mayor Goofy. Hey, Goofy Mayor, what you doing there? Well, I'm down in Rabbit Hash looking for a bear. Jumped back, Goofy shot a bear, shot it in the eye and didn't hit a hair.
Do I have to get closer? It was a big surprise. Goofy, 5,664 votes.
Hey, Goofy Mayor, what you doing there? Sitting in Rabbit Hash smoking a cigar. Jumped back, Goofy shot a bear, shot it in the eye and didn't hit a hair.
Anyway, it was something about the dog, and the dog outbarked me, so the dog won.
So how did that make you feel?
Made me feel goofy. Goofy got about $7,000, wasn't it? He had money coming from even your hometown, Los Angeles, you know?
But even as Mayor-elect Goofy was about to be sworn in, controversy threatened this already controversial election.
Unfortunately, the Kentucky Revised Statutes and the Constitution of Kentucky will not recognize an office holder that has more than 3 legs. I just took a telegram from the Kentucky League of Cities. They said Goofy will qualify as the mayor of Rabbit Hash. So congratulations, Goofy.
Hooray!
It was just a good time. We had music, we've had country, usually country and then bluegrass too. Several of the local people, I was telling you about musicians and banjo players and fiddle players and kazoos. We've had kazoos here. We've had...
That's a tough instrument.
It is when you're into the sauce.
In the end, a black and tan mutt named Goofy had beaten several humans, including Crazy Clifford and a woman named Fiddling Joy, who by all accounts never actually fiddled. And he beat out Herb, the first of several dogs to officially toss his collar into the Rabbit Hash election. And let's not forget, Goofy beat out a pot-bellied pig in his successful bid for elected office. Most importantly, when all was said and done, nearly $10,000 was raised for a small Rabbit Hash church. Goofy Borneman was mayor. Rabbit Hash would never be the same. At the time of the election, how big of a story had this become?
Front page, I mean, several front pages. It made front page newspapers in other cities. And I had calls from somebody was in Knoxville, Tennessee, saw it on a Tennessee station, dog elected mayor.
And while the election of Rabbit Hash had become prime fodder for the nightly news, few of these so-called journalists dared to dig deeper to uncover the ugly underbelly marring this nation's otherwise pristine and innocent political history. While many jump on the bandwagon to rally against racism, sexism, or ageism in this country, only one town dared to battle the oft and tragically overlooked issue of caninism.
All right, in Kentucky, 1 out of 5 mayors are women. 10 to 15% are African American, but only 1 dog. You think that's fair? Why not more dogs?
Well, that's a good question. Why didn't somebody else think of that before? We are innovative. This town is innovative. We're fair-minded. We're open-minded. Everybody's got the same chance. We're equal opportunity.
I did not vote for Goofy because, one, he wasn't purebred. I own purebred dogs, and I just think there's something to that. I'm not a racist or anything like that, but yeah, well, one has to have standards even if you live in Big Bone.
Let's talk about Goofy.
Oh, Goofy was wonderful. I mean, a little aggravating, as a pup. And when Goofy first was around, Goofy would go over and steal shoes. The first time I met most of the neighbors was when Goofy brought 1 shoe to the house. So the lady that lived in the log cabin, Betty Fisher, Goofy brought one of her grandson's shoes over, and it was the only pair of shoes the child had, and they were spending the weekend. So she came
so
over.
The future mayor was actually a criminal.
He was a criminal. He was a thief. But everybody loved Goofy. I mean, he just he wandered from house to house. He was a stray that made it big.
And as with any self-respecting politician, Goofy's propensity towards criminal behavior and chasing tail didn't subside once he became an elected official.
Dale got a call one day at the office from the sheriff's office. Said, "We picked up the mayor." Since Bornemans were in Florida, Dale went up and paid for the shots and the rabies tag and got the mayor out of jail.
Mayor doesn't get diplomatic immunity?
No, none whatsoever. The sheriff picked him up.
Of course, then once he became famous, the dog pound knew him. They knew when they had locked him up, they said, "Oh my God, we've got the mayor locked up." See?
While Goofy's early formative years, and even some of his mayoral years, were mired in a life of crime, crime itself would not be an issue that he would have to deal with much in Rabbit Hash. In its entire history, Rabbit Hash only basically had one incident of crime, a pack of cigarettes stolen from the general store, and even that crime was thwarted.
We got the Rabbit Hash Volunteer Fire Department string band and SWAT team.
Louis, at that time, had a houseboat, and the SWAT team mounted the houseboat, fired it up, turned it around, off they go after the culprit.
He's swimming.
Swimming. They catch him halfway in the river. This guy is about to take his last breath. I mean, can't move. I don't know what happened to cigarettes.
The only thing you have to do to be a full-fledged member is buy a hat or a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, because there's no dues, there's no officers, meetings are held irregularly, and you can't tell exactly what the organization is going to do next.
And this was Goofy's water bowl. He slept over there and he drank over here. Every day we had to keep the toilet flushed so Goofy could have fresh water.
We heard that Goofy had something like 180 descendants.
Yeah, I'm
what I
sure.
heard. Let's talk about that.
He traveled the countryside. He never was locked up.
So, you got a mayor who's promiscuous, had 180 kids, criminal, pretty standard mayor, regular politician.
It's really kind of a rags to riches story, isn't it?
It really is, you know, to be a stray dog and end up mayor of a town called Rabbit Hash.
And what about Rabbit Hash? Seriously, what kind of people in what kind of town in America would elect a dog as mayor?
Everybody's friendly, Amy's friendly, my mom is friendly. Everybody down here is so nice, and they're not hillbillies. People think we're hillbillies down here in Kentucky. We are not hill jacks, okay? We are friendly, and we like it when you come down here, and it's fun to hang out down here.
Rabbit Hash is kind of, the new generation, Rabbit Hash, has kind of attracted the old artists, hippies, you know, 60s people, grew up in the 60s, and there's a lot of them settled here.
You're pretty famous around.
Yeah, around here. Yeah, I'm famous. I'm a regional artist. Rabbit Hash just has so many subjects. I paint the dogs of Rabbit Hash. And in fact, about 3 years ago at Old Timers Day, I had a show called Old River Dogs. There were 3 or 4 paintings of different men and 3 or 4 paintings of different dogs, and it was quite successful.
Quite metaphorical.
Yes, and quite successful. So I don't know which I prefer to paint, the dogs or the men, but the dogs seem more appreciative.
We were in the sausage business.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for 104 years in downtown Cincinnati. So we go back down.
You guys look really young for your age.
Yeah. Didn't he hold up well?
Lately, I got interested in making Scottish brooches and doing Celtic art. People at the Scottish Games just go crazy for this kind of thing. So I'm trying to preserve something good out of the past and having a lot of fun. I don't know what those old guys were doing, what they were drinking, but I sure wish I had a quart of it. I couldn't bring any door latches and so forth because they're on the doors, but the kind of blacksmithing I do, I make house hardware. I figure that a man's going to use his door handle about as much as he's going to use anything, so I aim to make the finest and stoutest door handle.
There's a internationally known quilt maker, Jane Cochran. There's all kind of musicians.
I told him, I said, let's get together and form a string band. So Russ said, we'll just call it the Rabbit Hash String Band since I live down here. And so we've been playing together about 15 years or so, and we've just been playing and just having fun. We play at Coney Island every year. And
let's see, another good old song's a Bluebird. Let me think a minute here. I'm gonna have to recollect on it.
You made the banjo.
Well, yes, and got about $3 in it.
What is that?
That's a single-shot pistol, in case somebody doesn't like my playing.
And Doc Baker's not just talented, he's also smart. Now retired, Andy was a top doc who not only taught medicine, but also delivered most of the babies of Rabbit Hash.
There's published authors.
I've always been a freelance writer ever since I was young, and have written a couple of books. The latest one was called Journey Up the River, a Midwesterner Spiritual Pilgrimage.
And as if an author in the family wasn't enough, the other half of this Rabbit Hash couple is chairman for one of the largest media conglomerates in the world.
Well, I grew up on the river, 6 blocks from the Ohio River, played on the levee as a kid, and then at age 14 became a sports reporter for the local newspaper, and the rest is history. I'm a reporter and editor, and then they made a corporate type out of me, and I ended up as CEO of E.W. Scripps Company.
And the genius of Rabbit Hash doesn't seem to be limited to artistic endeavors. Could it really be true that someone in this tiny town, a town that actually had elected a dog as their mayor, someone who had the day before welcomed our entire crew into his home and made us an amazing down-home cooked meal on a wood stove in a log cabin that he built himself, that up until a few years ago didn't even have electricity, someone who has a big-ass barrel for a shower, very cool shower, no doubt. When I'm able to find a big-ass barrel that big, I may just get one myself, but I digress. Now I ask you, could this really be the same man who holds no less than 8 patents for inventing high-tech bank equipment?
We are not hill jacks, okay?
Of course, when we finally got to go upstairs in Louis Scott's cabin, it looked like the control center at NORAD. He's definitely added electricity and a bank of computers that would make Bill Gates proud.
What are you designing?
That's bank equipment.
But Louis, I don't know if he has it patented, has some programs for cutting metal by computer, laser technology that is as advanced, I'm told, it's as advanced as you can find in that trade. Came out of his little log cabin.
Of course, this is Rabbit Hash, the town where a dog can be mayor. So it figures that part of the inventive spirit of that town would revolve around our four-legged friends.
Dale Bardis has, this is interesting, he has a business called Mutt Mitts.
We started selling this to municipalities in the pet industry for dealing with pet waste. And it has grown to a point now, there are over 10,000 cities that provide mutt mitts in the parks.
When you're walking your dog and he does his business, you pull out your mutt mitt, you put it on, you pick up his business, and the mutt mitt folds over, it ties itself in a little knot, and you have a disposable bag, and they are biodegradable.
Call me crazy, but wouldn't that be a disposable glove?
Yeah, but it's a mutt mitt.
Never a community to let any opportunity go to waste, they've proven their inventive nature yet again with perhaps their greatest unsung creation, a thinking out of the box type of creation that turns roadkill into high art.
We got tired of standing dogs. You know about that? No. You must have grown up in a culturally deprived area somehow or another. Dog standing is that was the rage here just a few years ago. You go, bluegrass musicians especially, you know, you're on the road a lot. You go driving down the road, you see some poor old pooch that's got roaded. And he's laying there. And so you get out your sticks and wires and you get him all propped up standing, looking back down the road against the traffic, like that. And then you leave him there. And one mandolin player named Bill LaWire, he stood a Great Dane on a big Norwood ladder up there in town at 5 o'clock one night. And as far as I'm concerned, he's the champion dog stander of all times. Bickle got in trouble because they caught him trying to stand a calf. And so dog standing kind of fell out of favor.
And as if inventors, media moguls, artists, artisans, authors, and animals with political aspirations wasn't enough, Rabbit Hash also boasts a couple of aspiring singers.
I go out walking after midnight out in the starlight, just hoping you may be somewhere out walking after midnight, searching for me.
There is a common idea that has pulled together a wonderfully diverse set of great human beings with talents that you cannot imagine until you're here and dig into who these people are.
But not all of the noteworthy and diverse residents live in Rabbit Hash. In fact, according to local legends, some of them aren't living at all.
Well, here's what I know. At night, as I said, and it gets darker and later, different kind of creatures show up in Rabbit Hash. Most commonly, they're the drunks. All right? I've heard vampire stories, and we have a local resident who collects vampire teeth.
There's only one man in Rabbit Hash who could be bold enough to take on vampires. That's Andy Doc Baker.
There's a real for sure, honest to goodness vampire tooth, a lot of blood clotted all over it. They don't have very good oral hygiene. You got to hunt them at night. Because you drag one out in the daytime, they burn up and you can't get no teeth. Smack them scientifically, pull their tooth, and run like mad.
The history of Rabbit Hash actually centers around the Rabbit Hash General Store. As you can see, this is the earliest photo we have of the store, and it looks exactly the same now. This is 1894, and the store hasn't changed much at all.
Somebody printed it that it was the oldest continuously running general store in the country. And someone sent me a postcard from New England. I never said that to anyone, but they sent me a postcard with this general store on the front, and they said, we are the oldest general store, so I'm not going to say that.
The general store is extremely unique. You just don't find it in other towns. There's no running water, no air conditioning, old wooden, creaky floors, and I think it just kind of calms you down. There's a sense of belonging when you live down here.
Sometimes I'll go and I'll walk around and I'll sit underneath the general store. We have a little clubhouse going on under there, and we'll get candy and soda pops and sit on the porch and stuff.
Very cool. What kind of club? What is it? Just like club of friends?
Yeah. And we'll clean up and stuff. And we have a nature room, and it's real cool. And Brandy is another girl in the club, and she's putting rocks into the ground. It looks really cool. It looks like a floor.
It's a place for gathering and to solve the world's problems around the stove drinking beer, but we're still solving the problems of the world.
Tails.
If anything has threatened the survival of Rabbit Hash, it's been the floods, many of them over the years. But the granddaddy of them all is known in these parts simply as the Flood of 37.
Big flood, 1937. In Cincinnati, which is where they officially measure the crests, it was 79.9 feet. In actuality, it was probably 82 or 83 feet. The reason it was officially 79.9 is all the flood insurance companies had a rider. If the river ever gets over 80 feet, this insurance contract is void. So the official reading in Cincinnati was 79.9 feet. Here, it took this whole side of Rabbit Hash. The place I'm standing, it took probably 5 or 6 buildings, just took it away.
And every time the river comes up, it deposits trash. We saw things like, livestock. We had to deal with dead livestock on the riverbanks. Things like fuel tanks, drums, anything that you can imagine, certainly appliances. We found it on the riverbanks. It was very bad.
The reason for Rabbit Hash is the serenity, peacefulness. They sit and watch the river. But that river can turn on you, and the river it can be dangerous. It's a killer. Floods and ice. Floods is what wiped out the town, and our last ferry boat was taken by ice.
With the real threat of floods that could, in a flash, wipe out the remaining history of Rabbit Hash, the town's inventive spirit took over again. A simple but clever device was implemented to help keep Rabbit Hash, and particularly its historic general store, from becoming the Atlantis of the Deep South.
Well, what they did was a blacksmith. We have a local blacksmith here. He made iron bars that bolted from the sill and the plate logs all the way down the building, and they're anchored into the ground with a hook system, so that when the water comes up and gets under the store and starts to float it, these hooks engage, and that building is kept underwater securely.
So it could just float away.
Yeah, it would be gone, and that's what's so precious about that store and Rabbit Hash, and the fact that those people came up with that idea. We used the same idea when we built the museum here. It's got the hooks. If it floats away, they're going to engage, and it'll keep that building here.
Did you actually say precious, Don?
Precious, yeah. It is precious.
But as precious as the invention was for saving buildings, it couldn't do much to help other less concrete victims of the flood.
We had a fire truck. It was an old 30s model pumper. I'm afraid the last flood did in the fire truck, though, so the fire truck's gone.
Really? And what happens? Is it still in the river somewhere? Or did they pull it out?
No, it got flooded and the water got in the engine, and I guess Ohio River mud's bad for the pistons or something. I'm not a mechanic.
When you come down Rabbit Hash Hill Road and you have that lovely arch of trees, and you get down to the bottom of the hill and you make that turn and you come around the river, Mike McKinney, who lives up on the top of the hill, said it best. It was like you entered another world and you just kind of stepped back, and there was sort of a real peace. And you can hang out down here, and it's like time has passed everything by.
And when it comes to stepping back in time, most of the citizens of Rabbit Hash don't just talk the talk. Virtually everyone we came across in this tiny town lives in an authentic log cabin that they built themselves. Back in 1979, Louis Scott, Don Clare, and Andy Doc Baker began buying up the property of Rabbit Hash. But when they ran into a local old-timer who didn't want to sell, rather than force her out like most land barons, they decided to work around her.
Donnie and I bought everything but where Miss Beulah lived because we didn't want to take and move an old lady and upset her or anything like that. So we left her in her garden, and
just the way it was.
Just the way it was. We said, we're not going to buy it. It's yours. Don't worry about it. Nobody's ever going to take it away from you. Well, Donnie he started to build first, so he went up on the ridge and started his log house. And I'm sort of a hermitish soul, so I went way back up in the woods and started mine.
Louis had already started building his log cabin, and Don Clare was well on his way to getting his log home constructed. But as Doc Baker started his, some unforeseen complications caused a rather unwelcome delay in his plans.
About that time, I went down the tubes with cancer. And that place down there saved my life. Gave me something to live for, take my mind off my troubles. It took about 7 years to build a house working off and on, so I built myself a blacksmith shop. And then, of course, you get dirty at a blacksmith shop, so I was putting a big old tin tub out on top of the cistern, pumping it full of water and jumping in, and getting clean. Well, this worked fine, except every time I did, a pickup truck come up the driveway and they'd laugh at me. So I built me a sauna bath. I knew how to make a good one. So we now have house, barn, 2 shops, and the finest combination outhouse and deer stand in Boone County, Kentucky.
But no matter how comfy the sauna or combination outhouse deer stand may be, no one can ever accuse Doc Baker of selling out to the comforts of modern convenience.
We're still sleeping on a rope bed. About a 1790 bed, sleeps real good. Especially with me and 2 or 3 dogs in there, I never get cold. We did have a chamber pot, but we've since moved to a composting toilet now. We moved upscale, very upscale. Added a bathroom. I didn't have electric down there for 20 years. And when I finally started getting old, I broke down and put in electric, but I don't like it, so I still light with candles and kerosene most of the time because those electric lights are too garish. This place, instead of having many rooms, has many buildings. Every time I get a new idea, I just build another building and stick it in there.
As we found out, when Andy's not building buildings, he's building other things. Among them, walking sticks, door latches, and hinges. Perhaps most impressively, fully firing reproductions of antique guns.
There's a flintlock pistol made in the right and proper manner, stocked in cherry wood and silver inlaid. I remember.
You made that from scratch.
I remember my daughter held the silver still while I pounded on it.
And apparently, once he makes them, he's not afraid to use them.
we were sitting at the table talking, and we heard these bees buzzing, and Andy just goes, "Wait a minute." Pulls out a gun, shoots a bee, and cuts him in half. There's half of the bee sticking on the plastic and a bullet hole right next to it.
It was one of those big old cicada killer wasps, horrible looking things. And Donnie's allergic to bees and carries adrenaline and things with him, you know, in case he gets stung. So when that big old critter lit, I just popped him one and saved that man's life.
Cut him right in half.
At least that's what he said.
Saved my life.
So it seems with log cabins, string bands, handmade guns, outhouses, and blacksmithing shops, most of the citizens of Rabbit Hash are involved in preserving some aspect of history. But Donnie Clare wants to preserve it all. As the unofficial historian of Rabbit Hash, he's made preserving the town's historic roots one of his life's goals. In 2001, tragedy was about to strike this idyllic Kentucky town.
Sad news from Rabbit Hash, Kentucky. Mayor Borneman has died.
I wish I had known Goofy.
I guess the darkest day was losing our mayor. That was dark.
And then a neighbor that lives down the road by the name of Jeep Ellis was nice enough to stop by one night. It was about midnight, and said Goofy's laying at the side of the road and he can't move. He had just exhausted himself and he couldn't move. He just had to lay there. So we picked him up, put him in a car and brought him home. But
Goofy gets sick mid-term, is that what you call it? During his term, he's, we don't even know what the term was, but.
How long is a term? In dog years?
In dog years, you're probably looking at 120 years or so.
Right, okay. That's a long time.
He develops liver cancer, but he survives that. So Goofy's back for a while, everybody's happy. Finally, he succumbed to testicular cancer.
Another ballless politician.
You got Herb that's ticked off at him. You got Clifford that can't be happy.
Huh?
Conspiracy?
Oh, man.
Conspiracy? What do you think?
I don't know.
I'm thinking liver cancer is sort of the Lee Harvey Oswald patsy of Rabbit Hash. What do you think about that?
You're on to something. We don't have a book depository here. Or...
Serious question here. Now, Goofy wins, but gets sick in the middle of his term. Do you have anything to do with that? Conspiracy?
I'll take the fifth. I'll take the fifth on that.
Because I smell a conspiracy.
He was in for 3 years. You know, that was long enough.
Before his untimely demise, Goofy became severely depressed when the cute little intern assigned to assist him in his administrative duties ran away with some mangy back-riding dog from Erlanger.
Well, it's just sad to talk about, but final line is he had to be euthanized. They had to put Goofy down. The mayor had to be put down. It was, I'm sure, a very hard decision for Goofy's owners. It was, you know, devastating for the town. To lose a mayor is one thing. To lose him that way is just adds to it. But he had to be euthanized. The story even gets sadder. Somebody, and I don't know who, I think it was a newspaper reporter, actually either called or went to the vet or found out somehow that once you euthanize a dog, what happens to him? And the answer he got was, oh, he's probably in a landfill somewhere.
So your mayor was dumped in a landfill.
That's what we've heard.
If Clifford had won and had to be euthanized, would you have dumped him in a landfill?
I think Clifford liked to just be in the river. The parade was done in retrospect, out of our respect for Goofy and what he meant, what he did for the town. It was quite an ordeal.
I was in this parade.
Oh, you were? Tell me about that.
It was fun. We waited all the way down there, and we were walking and marching, and Elizabeth, she was blowing a horn and stuff, and we were making noise, and her mom was dressed up as a clown. It was fun.
The length of the parade was 4 times the length of this whole town. I mean, just people showed up in droves to pay their respect, and it'd bring a tear to a glass eye. That's how touching it was.
And Ben, this other kid, he was dressed up as a Dalmatian, and he was in the front.
Ben, his name's Ben.
Wagon.
Ben was hilarious. He was going, arr, arr.
What was he doing?
He was going, arr, arr. He was on the wagon by the box where Goofy's body was supposedly, yeah.
And how? Tell me how that felt when you heard that Goofy had died.
It was kind of sad because a lot of dogs, usually Rabbit Hash was full of dogs and they were friendly and stuff and you could pet them. But now they're kind of going because cars are hitting them and stuff, or they're just leaving.
Hitting twice. You think they're leaving because the dog's not mayor anymore and they're sad about that, or?
Probably.
Let me explain. Live the life, love it till you die. And I don't believe the sun has gone. We're just waiting out for the dawn. And I want to do it right.
Boone County's judge delivered Goofy's eulogy, and that was very touching.
The loss of Goofy was a tragedy. When I served as judge, I had done eulogies in the past, but never for someone of such high character as Goofy. I mean, so this was the epitome of my service to eulogize.
And when you retire from being a judge, are you still the honorable?
Well, I'm not sure how honorable I was when I was judge, to be honest with you.
Goofy was a very good mayor. He liked to hang around town. He never bid anybody.
Which is important in a mayor.
It's very important. He set up the very first, you mentioned the traffic going through here. He set up the first traffic control and parking control. So he would make his rounds, pee on a tire, make his rounds, pee on another tire. If all 4 were hit, it's time for you to leave. You've been here too long.
Seems that there are many citizens that still wish Goofy was in Rabbit Hash, patrolling the streets to keep the traffic down. For the last couple of years, as many as 400 bikers with very loud bikes routinely fill the main drag of Rabbit Hash on the weekends.
I used to like it because there wasn't very many people, but it's getting an awful lot of people now. I may have to move on down the river. Don't want to live in the country and have to listen to a bunch of noise. You know, when you get too many people, it's not peaceful anymore.
Despite the frustration that some feel over the weekend invasion of their muffler-challenged visitors, Lady Luck continues to shine on the tiny river town of Rabbit Hash.
You mean $250,000? Yeah, that is a little windfall.
An unexpected windfall. In 2001, former citizen and lover of Rabbit Hash, Edna Flowers, left the town's executive board $250,000, newfound money that they don't even know how to spend.
My understanding is, either I read this or you told me this, that up until that time, your budget was about $1,000.
Oh, on good years.
On good years.
The expense here, the monthly expense for the museum is $6.01. Now, I wrote that check every month. That's for our electric. Well, then you're writing a check for $6.01 one day, and the next day you get a phone call and say, you got $250,000. That's a lot of electric. It's a lot of months of electric.
You just go crazy and leave the lights on all night now?
No, Goofy taught us moderation. No, we turn the lights off. Turn the lights off, you preserve it. Nothing's changed, except that the bank says we got $250,000.
I think everybody will leave $250,000
Dave's planning on
and change. Correct? Yes.
Very cool.
That'd be my new platform. Leave your money. And your farm, and your chickens, and your goats, and anything else you got. Well, yeah, you could leave your wives if you want to. No problem.
So here's what I got out of this. Now, up until Goofy's mayor, $6.01 a month. Goofy becomes mayor.
I see where you're going.
Suddenly, you got $250,000.
You think Goofy did something to get the money?
I'm thinking he was a damn good mayor.
What does a mayor make these days?
Rabbit Hash mayor, I think is pretty much paid in kibble.
Really?
Yeah.
No bits?
With all that money in the Rabbit Hash coffer now, are there any plans for a new mayoral election? Well, so far, aside from the usual suspects, the candidate with the most promising political future in Rabbit Hash is a real ass.
A miniature donkey, his name's Higgins.
You want to be mayor?
He's got an inherent political party, but I think I'll run him Republican, just to confuse things.
Shake it up a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, a donkey on a Republican ticket.
I would say groundbreaking.
It would be. The donkey would even, he tried to get amorous with the pig a few times. Pig has a big slit in her ear where he grabbed her by the, he had her by the ear and he was slinging her around. So anyway, they've
And
grown.
nothing says loving like slinging a pig around.
That's right.
Well, here's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking. Rabbit Hash is planning a new election to replace Goofy. I'm thinking
I don't know.
Loretta Lynn, the name, the celebrity endorsement. I'm thinking mayor material.
She's really busy doing a lot of charity work right now.
All the more popularity votes, you know.
So we'll have to see, because I think her heart's with the people. Yet, I don't know if she's really into politics as much as she just is into licking. So,
well, aren't we all?
But no matter who wins the next one, be it donkey, pot-bellied pig, or even a crazy Clifford, it's the dog for the people, a canine truly ahead of his time, that will always be remembered.
Well, his plaque and his Mayor of Rabbit Hash plaque is in the general store, and his hat. Did you see that?
I didn't like the idea that sign being down there, Goofy Borneman. You know, there are people that don't know about the dog, you know, but they know about Goofy Borneman.
The thing that's important with Goofy and his memory, and with this town, I think we've just set an unparalleled precedence, not only in the state of Kentucky, but in our nation, that yes, you can truly euthanize public officials. We thought, let's just hide and watch. This is going to take off. I mean, we're going to read about somebody else doing it, the mayor of this town, a senator, a congressman, but it didn't take off like we thought. As far as we know, Goofy is still the only euthanized public official.
Can you try to push that through as a bill or a legislation?
Well, see, you'd have to depend on the ones you want to euthanize to push it through.
That's a problem.
Sure it is.
So while they haven't had much success at their plans for political euthanasia, everyone we met had plenty of other things to say about this little town that elected a dog as their mayor.
Well, we just perpetuate that myth that it's full of hillbillies down here because we don't want anybody else down here to discover the secret of Rabbit Hash. It's a state of mind.
I believe that Kentucky is the greatest state in the world. There's a song, Kentucky, you are the dearest land this side of heaven to me. Kentucky, your laurel and redbud trees. When I die, I long to rest upon God's peaceful mountains so high. For that is where God will look for me. It's heaven on earth.
It's kind of fun because we'll go down by the river and we'll play in the mud and stuff, and it's actually kind of fun. And by the creek, we'll just play with rocks and stuff.
The more time I spend with her down here, I just am so excited to be raising her here.
So she'll have good people skills.
Yeah, I hope, hopefully. or not.
Have you traveled much outside of Rabbit Hash? Have you seen? Yeah.
Yeah.
Where have you been?
Sort of. We like been down the creek and stuff.
Rabbit Hash is, it's the center of the universe, I think. That's where it is. I mean, I'm sure if you put a pin in a map, somehow it would be the center of the universe. There's something special here. You sit at the river, all of a sudden you get calm, you get serene, peaceful. You're 20 minutes from Florence Mall, from downtown Cincinnati. You drive 20 minutes, you get to Rabbit Hash, get out of your car, and your blood pressure drops 30 points.
The guy asked me, he said, what is a successful man? I said, a man that's successful is a man who has limited aggravation.
I think this lifestyle, Rabbit Hash, Kentucky, definitely saved my life. You can sit around and feel sorry for yourself, or you can take an active role. And Rabbit Hash is a place for people who take an active role in life.
You can just feel it, you know? You can just feel what it's like to be here and what it felt like to be here 171 years ago. You know, at night when I'm here, I just, and all the lights are, you know, down, and it's quiet, and there's no motorcycles or no folks around. It's the most peaceful place, you know? Or if you're sitting on the front porch when it's raining, it's the most peaceful place to be ever. You know, I have found great peace here.
This is a community of intelligent, smart people, caring people. We mesh, we think alike, we can differ and still be friends. You know, you can have fun, you can be serious, you can laugh, you can cry, you can have babies, you can bury people, you can have old timers, new people, and it's just, I don't know, it's hard to explain. So I have a passion for this history here, for the Ohio River, for this part of Boone County. It's only 3.5 acres of this whole universe, but it just says the best things about human nature is right here. Anything good about human nature, you can find right here.
Everywhere I go, I'm a Kentucky girl.
We feel very blessed to have this opportunity to live here. If someone needs anything, you know, the people are there they are there to help. They are willing. They offer. If somebody is sick or in some kind of circumstances, there are those who are willing to come forth and help.
We put our roots down in Rabbit Hash and we expect to die here.
If you want to get really close to God, churches are fine. But going out and sitting on a log in the middle of the woods is a whole lot finer. Go out in the world that God made. First you see the trees, then pretty soon you get to where you see what's in between the trees, and all of a sudden the deer begin to appear. You notice some ferns growing where you hadn't seen them quite before, and then all of a sudden you realize how pretty things really are. That's what happens here to us every single day.
They can close the door now. That'd be fine with me.
He led us onward. I mean, we have a vision here. This town has a vision for the future, and that's progress here means going backwards. So our vision is progress. And as we go backwards toward our progress, we're preserving Rabbit Hash, okay?
Slowing things down, not progressing is progressing.
Right. Going backward is progression. We like to say here, we just want to hide and watch. You know, we're sitting here and we're gonna hide and watch. We're gonna hide from the rest of this world, this crazy world, this 9/11 world. We're gonna hide from that, and we're gonna watch what happens to that world and to those people and that mentality, and we're gonna watch and see how our little world progresses, and in the end, we're gonna see who won. And we're all gonna have t-shirts. We won. Rabbit Hash won, and you didn't.
And as we were leaving, we certainly thought and laughed about Goofy. But what we also discovered in our time there was that this little town that had been so defined by their campy decision to elect a dog as mayor was really so much more. Rabbit Hash was a hidden, backwoods little slice of Americana that just doesn't seem to exist much anymore. A place where people pull together through thick and thin, where doors are rarely locked and everybody knows everybody knows everybody. It's a place that just doesn't much care about what goes on outside of their one main street, and maybe they live a much simpler life because of it. Does the fact that they play in jug bands, still use outhouses, or have enough of a sense of humor about themselves and the current state of politics to elect a dog as mayor make them hicks or hilljacks? I don't know. Could it be instead that they've really stumbled onto something? I mean, maybe life is just simpler in the center of the universe.
They got dogs that run for office. They got men who like to bark. But you won't get shot or robbed or killed if you go out after dark. Yeah, they ain't got what the big towns got. That's the way it's going to stay. I'm going down to Rabbit Hash, watch the river roll all day. Now the bathroom downtown is an outhouse. They had to put the mayor to sleep. You can take away the cable and the internet, but the library they will keep. Let's go on down to Crazy Clifford's. Let's hear what he has to say. I'm going down to Rabbit Hash, watch the river roll all day. They got a love for life and a friendly smile. That's more than most people can say. Let's go on down to Rabbit Hash, watch that river roll all day. They ain't got no fancy brew pub. They just drink their whiskey straight. And I'm going down to Rabbit Hash, watch the river roll away. So let's go on down to Rabbit Hash. Come on.
Town without pain looks all the same. Close your eyes, maybe you're home. Inside is dead, outside is worse. Wave the flag, paint a monochrome. And I don't believe the sun has gone. We're just waiting out on the lawn. Cities and dreams held up by beams, and no one knows how the dark We're just looking for a Valentine.